Okay, still playing Dark Souls 3 right now, and I wanna wait until I actually finish it because I haven't beaten it yet until I give my full, final thoughts on it, just to be completely fair. But I'm really glad I didn't buy it. I'm really glad I just rented it from Redbox. Like, okay, so my opinion on it has changed since the video, because like in the video I was saying like, oh, this is a prequel. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know why I was saying that. I must have heard that somewhere, maybe on TV tropes or something. Maybe some fucking fart nugget wrote that on TV tropes. Like, oh, it's a prequel, so you're not undead, you're unkindled, or whatever. And I just took it on faith, like, oh, it's a prequel then. Like, I have no idea what gave me that impression or whatever, but that's totally wrong. Like, it's made abundantly clear that no, this is a sequel, and it takes place ages and ages after the first one. And it does it a lot better than Dark Souls 2 did, because Dark Souls 2 was like, oh, it was lost to memories past, and everything's just like, oh, a little bit similar because it's Psycho. Oh, so unoriginal. Like, fucking just expunge Dark Souls 2 from my mind, try as I might. I mean, I guess the designs for the giants are kind of. I mean, they're fine. Like, it's sort of it's like taking what was salvageable from Dark Souls 2. Like, Dark Souls 1 did have giants. It had a Tomb of the Giants, and then like Dark Souls 2 had the giants with just like the fucking holes where their face are. And that was kind of a creative design, and I guess Miyazaki was like, "That's good, put it in." It's like it reminds me of how in Dragon Age Origins, Sten was supposed to be a Canary, and then in Dark Souls 2, Canaries had the horns, and they were like, "So is Sten not a Canary?" And they were like, "No, he is. We just didn't have the like." Resources and graphical capability to give him the horns. He's supposed to have the horns, though. Just failing of the technology of the era. Like how in Metal Gear, like you were originally there was supposed to be a fight with a decoy octopus, but then they were like, PS1's a piece of shit. We couldn't do it. So makes me think like if they did like a next gen remake of Dark Souls 1, if they would go to the trouble to redesign all the giant characters to have that hole in their face. Probably not, because they're lazy. But anyway, yeah, not a prequel. I'm an idiot. And that does improve my opinion about it somewhat. Because, like, half of that video is me complaining about how it's a prequel and how that doesn't make sense. I'm dumb. Like, just ignore all of that. And replace it instead with complaints about how a sequel to Dark Souls is fucking stupid. Although the way it handles it is pretty good, but, like, basically, to accept this game, you have to go, like, okay, the linking the fire ending was canon. Which is bullshit, because I didn't link the fire. I fucking said, fuck this. I looked at the world of fucking Dark Souls and I was like, this place is on life support. Put it out of my misery. Pull the plug. Fuck this. Age of Dark. Age of Humanity. Let's go. Dark Lord, motherfucker. So then this game comes out and it's like, no, you didn't do that. You linked the fire. Shut the fuck up. And it's like, yeah. Like, this is why having sequels is dumb. But anyway. The way it's presenting it, so like, the original guy, like Gwyn linked the flame, and then the fire started going out. So Frampt and Gwendolyn, always get those mixed up, decided to come up with this scheme to fabricate this prophecy of the chosen undead to trick fucking stupid fucking zombies into doing their bidding for them, into like throwing themselves into this suicide meat grinder of fighting these deific entities to like what's the grindstone, refine their souls into something powerful enough to be sufficient as kindling for the first flame and replace Gwyn. And then you did, like, there's more to it than that. I could just go on for hours. But, like, according to Dark Souls 3, you linked the flame and it prolonged the Age of Fire for, a couple more generations maximum. And then what they apparently, according to this, what they decided to do was they would get Lords of Cinder, like, fucking really powerful entities of their world, and just keep sacrificing people. Keep throwing dudes onto the fucking pyre, keep lighting that flame, just prolong this shit for as long as we can. The last dying breath of this fucking world. And it's so unnatural. This world is just falling apart. Like, you can really see that in some of the designs they did, especially in the later areas. Like, even some of the bosses you fight, like, you find a stray demon, which is the very first boss you fight in Dark Souls 1. And he's completely petrified because the fire is gone. Like, it's been so long that, like, it's like that joke in SpongeBob where they're selling the chocolates door to door, and they go to that one house and it's an old lady and they're like, "Is your mother home?" And she's like, "Ma'am!" And this fucking wheelchair of this fucking spinal cord, and it's all sunken face. It's like just a skeleton and a skull and a spinal cord skeleton. That's what it's like. That's what the world of Dark Souls is like. Like, dude, the Age of Fire was supposed to end. What the fuck? But that's just my interpretation. I'm sure other people are like, yes, rage against the dying of the light. But personally, I've never seen, extinction or whatever as, this horrible cataclysmic tragedy. Like, it would be, but because we're alive, after it was over and we're dead, it wouldn't really matter. Everything would just kind of keep going. It's a very human-centric, egotistical. It's the same kind of mentality of like the people who are like, save the planet. The planet's not going anywhere. We are making our own environment and our own ecosystem fucking unlivable for us, and we're probably gonna drag a few other species down with us. We're all gonna die. But the planet is going to keep going. Like, give it a couple thousand years minimum, and all traces that we ever existed will be completely gone. The ecosystem will have, like, the animals that survived will have adapted to the new ecosystem. New life will begin to evolve. Everything will just keep going. Like, planet's going to keep spinning. We aren't needed. I mean, it's fucking, beneficial to us, for us to continue to exist. But, it's not something I would, if it's the sort of thing like, I'm going to blow up the planet, I'd be like, fuck you. But if it's like, the planet is dying, I'd be like, why do we want to keep living? This is dumb. Have you seen this? Everything's fucked up. People are turning into zombies and going insane. Like, we literally had to burn a god alive in order just to keep this going for like a couple hundred more years. Let it go, man. Nothing lasts forever. All things gotta come to an end. But that's just my opinion. Like, I'm getting really fucking too real on that one, I think. in terms of Dark Souls, I picked the Dark Lord ending. Fuck this game's existence right off the bat, right there. But I sort of see, like, now that I'm not an idiot thinking it's a prequel for. I'm kicking myself in the fucking head. I don't know where I got that. Anyway, it's done really well how they established that this world on life support kept going for ages and ages and ages. Like the Age of Fire, like the amount of time that the Age of Fire lasted times, insert number here. Like it just kept going because they just kept throwing fucking kings and gods onto the flame. It's like in a library throwing books on the fire to keep it from consuming the building itself. I know the logic of that doesn't really hold up because if you throw books on a fire, it's going to get bigger and then it will burn down the place. Whereas if you don't throw books on the fire is going to go out instead of eating the world. But anyway, point is, opinion is a little bit improved there, but still still not 100% positive because I still don't like how you saw in the video how you wake up in a graveyard. Go. It's a guy. He had a thing, dragon. Oh, I beat him. Oh, all these embers. Oh, sword. And you get to the Firelink Shrine, and they're like, hey, it's the fucking Unkindled! You're gonna go find those Lords of Cinder, right? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, that's what you're gonna do, right? They're like, I don't even need to ask. You're just gonna go do it because that's what you're gonna go do. I'm like, what? Why should I? And like, we gotta link the flame. And I'm like, you mean that thing I didn't do back in Dark Souls 1? Why would I do it now? I didn't do it before. And they're just like, fuck, just play the video game. I'm like, fuck you. But, like, the original fucking Soul, like, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and hell, Bloodborne didn't have that problem. Dark Souls 2 had that problem. And Dark Souls 2 sucked! Like, I don't just, like, put it, like, compare and contrast, like fucking Demon Souls. What I'm asking for is, all I'm asking for is some basic motivation. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? Why should I want to do that? Give me a reason. I talked about this before. I need context. And it's not even like the games always provided this. Demon Souls, who are you? You're an adventurer from a faraway land, lured by the temptation of treasure and power in the kingdom obscured by the fog that is Boletaria. You get there, you die, your soul gets bound to the Nexus. And from there, you get told this story about the old one, the great old one, and the fucking what's it called? The monument, the fucking Avatar kid. And they're like, if you want to get out of here, you got to go kill demons. You got to go slay some demons and collect their souls. And you can say no. You can say no, and they'll be like, fine, have fun rotting here in the Nexus for fucking ever, you retard. And they'll be like, I'm gonna play video game. They explain to you, they tell you, this is what you need to do, this is why you want to do it, yes or no. Dark Souls 1. Who are you, and why are you here? You are an undead. You were like cattled up from your homeland and shipped off to the undead asylum because in this world, people are just turning undead by the truckload and no one wants to deal with the fucking problem, so they just cart up their undead and throw them in a fucking asylum to be like, just fuck whatever. Let them hollow out over there, we don't give a shit. You're just sitting in the cell awaiting the end of the world. And then out of nowhere, homeboy Oscar drops a key down. You can get the key and escape, meet up with Oscar over there. And he's like, yo, I'm dying. Do me a solid. Like, hear out my dying request. And he tells you the fucking prophecy of the undead, of the chosen undead. You gotta go to Loredran and ring the bells. Do me a solid here. I saved you from the cell. I'm dying. Fulfill my dying request and fulfill the destiny that I can't achieve. And you can say yes or no. You can be a total douchebag and say no and just kill him and leave and just piss off and do whatever you want. You don't even have to ring the bells for awakening. The way that game is set up, you're pretty much able to get anywhere on the world map that you want to go right from the get-go. Like, if you wanted to roleplay it, you could say, like, fuck you, I ain't ringing no bells, make your way down to Ash Lake, join the Dragon Covenant, and just start fucking transformation fetish into a dragon. There's nothing stopping you. Like, you don't have to ring the bells of awakening, but, like, from the perspective of, like, a player who wants to reach the end state of the game, you know what you're doing, why you're doing it. Bloodborne. A lot less, but okay, I'm getting a blood transfusion. You can assume that, oh, you might have had an ailment and you came to Yharnam, which is famous for its blood ministrations that can cure illnesses. So already you can, like, you can impose your own backstory onto that. And you had the little list of backstory, like milk toast, waste of skin, like traumatized, all that shit. So, you know, okay, why am I here? Oh, you might have been sick, and you came to Yharnam for the fabled blood ministrations. And you get the contract to become a hunter. And you're like, well, what does that mean? And, like, you wake up, and the only thing around you is a note that says, seek the pale blood to transcend the hunt. What the fuck does that mean? Walk out the door, fucking dead, wake up in the nightmares, wake up in the hunter's dream. And from there you learn the only way to, like, transcend the hunt is to seek the pale blood, or else the hunt will go on forever and you'll never wake up. You will be eternally lost in this waking dream for all time. You're like, well, all I wanted to do was get a little cure for my fucking sniffles over here. I guess I'll go hunt some beasts, because I kind of want to get the fuck out of here. And from there, like, you learn more, but you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like, it's a lot less. And to be fair, I'm not the first one to advocate judging Bloodborne on the same metric as Dark Souls and Demon Souls, because it's not Souls, it's Born. It's a different game. Like, it's made by the same people, a lot of the same elements, but it's a different thing. Even then, it still had that. Even Dark Souls 2, you can read like, you get this fucking terrible, shitty FMV being like, oh, your wife and baby, blah, 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 you have the curse. You went to Drang Lake because you heard they might have a cure there, I guess. Go look for the cure, or whatever. fucking game sucked, and you didn't really still had more than Dark Souls 3, which is I woke up in a grave. You're the fucking Seeker of Lords, right? Go find the Lords of Cinder. Why? To link the fire. I don't want to link the fire. Fuck you. It might seem like, I know some people would be like, who fucking cares? I fucking care. Fuck you. Every other game has had this. Every other game has had this. You can't. It's that argument where, like, oh, like, it's not the same argument. But some people who are like, you know, oh, don't judge this game by previous games in the series. Judge it on its own merits. Fuck you. It says Dark Souls. I'm going to judge it by the previous games. And to be fair, it's a lot better than fucking Dark Souls 2. A lot better. Still really derivative. I don't... You know, Dark Souls 2 felt like fan fiction. Dark Souls 3 feels like the original creator spinning the wheels. It really does feel like he was just making this game halfway in between while also making Bloodborne. I think you might genuinely be able to use this game as an excuse for a lot of the problems that Bloodborne had, because, like, well, why didn't they do this? Well, he was busy, he was, like, in and out the door working on this and Dark Souls 3. Something slipped through the cracks. And, of course, I'm being lenient on Bloodborne and hard on Dark Souls, but, like, the reason is, Dark Souls is still probably the best game in this, you know, umbrella of genre, of this, like, fucking franchise. Because, like, Demon's Souls was probably the best in terms of, you know, narrative and environment structure. Because the thing about these games is, like, the main appeal to me has always been the oppressive environmental storytelling. Like, I play these games and I view them almost as a survival horror kind of thing, because you're going through this environment and it's just so like, the lack of confidence you have going through these games. It's like how, like, when you're playing a character action game and Bayonetta's like, darling, it's the complete opposite of that. Just every step you're taking, you're like, I'm fucking shit my pants nervous about everything that might be 2 steps in front of me here. And Demon's Souls was the best one when it came to that, and it was the most, you know, original, like, it was the fucking trendsetter, so to speak. Like, it laid the foundations. It was the first of its kind in terms of the Soul style of gameplay. And, you know, the quality of life is a lot... It gets hard. It's hard to go back to Demon's Souls, man, because that shit is rough. That shit is jank. That shit just is esoteric. It's really rough. But it has that, like, real fucking genuine creative, like, just raw originality that is somewhat lacking in the future games. Because Dark Souls, despite being probably the best one, I always felt was held back by sort of a sense of bitterness I always felt from it. Like they made Demon's Souls, and then Sony was like, fuck you, got mine. Like, it was that real, like, Walt Disney Oswalt situation where the feeder owned the character and the cartoons, fuck you, get out. Like, we own Demon's Souls now, get out my house. And they were like, fuck you, I'll make my own Demon's Souls with blackjack and hookers. And that's what Dark Souls was. It was Demon's Souls with blackjack and hookers. And it suffered a little bit from that. It suffered a little bit from that resentment. You know, from the example I always go to is like the miracles and the sorceries. Like the miracles and sorceries in Demon Souls were really creative and original because sorceries were studied by witches and wizards and magic, like generic magic people. And it's rumored, sort of, that they originate from demonic origin. Like you are tapping into the hell beast in order to cast these. And sorcerers themselves might be like, you're fucking ignorant, fucking hick, whatever. But that's the dynamic, is sorceries come from demons. And then you have miracles, which the church, Umbasa, proliferates, and those come from God. They are literally divine miracles on earth, like a small portion of the power of God being used to benefit the lives of us mere mortals. And there was always that like fucking butted heads between sorcerers and the church folk because of that dynamic. One came from demons and one came from God. And then, come the end of the game, the revelation that the source of both miracles and sorceries, the power you are tapping into to get both of these things, come from the same thing. They are two branches of the tree to which the trunk is the Great Old One. The fucking Cthulhu eldritch monster that caused the tragedy of Boletaria and the mist and all that. And that's such a great fucking twist. You know, oh, fuck you, it comes from demons. You know, oh, it comes from God. You're both right. You're both white. Because the Great Old One is the God that the church is worshipping unknowingly. And the Great Old One is the power that they are drawing from to cast their miracles. Same thing with the sorcerers. The Great Old One is what birthed the demons and feeds on the demons' souls. That's why that title is Demons' Souls. No one says it right. Everyone just says Demon Souls. It's Demon, S. Demon's Souls. It's like the most fucking ass retarded title. Can you tell that the Japanese are the ones who came up with this? But anyway, that was just this brilliant fucking original creative dynamic where both of the magics that you can use in the game both come from the same thing, the villain that you're fighting throughout this fucking game. The story. And why are sorceries and miracles in Dark Souls? Because they were in Demon Souls. That's the reason. And they just, they were like, we had those in Demon Souls, we gotta put them in Dark Souls. Because blackjack and hookers, bro. And then they sort of just kind of, hand-waved, fucking, an explanation for why they make sense in the world of Dark Souls. Which they don't. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Miracles are supposed to be, you're telling us, you're remembering a story of divine, or it's like you're reading a page of the Bible. Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! And then sorceries are just and they're studying sorceries come from dragons? Because Seath is the one that Big Hat Logan's obsessed with. That's sort of... Plague of Gripes likes to joke about how, everything that they just couldn't think of a better explanation for, they said, Seath did it. Seath came up with sorceries from where? Like, what is magic derived from in this world? Like, magic in Demon Souls was derived from the Great Old One. People were unknowingly tapping into the power of the Great Old One and the demons in order to cast these magics. Where does magic come from in Dark Souls? What? And with miracles, it actually makes even less sense because you're calling on the power of the gods, who are just another life. Like, they're called gods because they call themselves gods. Funny enough, that's one of the fun things about that set. Like, I'm ragging on it, but Dark Souls does have a really great story and lore. It's just parts of it don't make any sense because they were just taken from Demon Souls because they were in Demon Souls. And that's like, Dark Souls is the best one, but it also has the most problems with it, in my opinion, because of that, sort of bitterness and that sort of resentment that, oh, you took our fucking IP away from us, fuck you. We're just gonna remake it under a different name. And then, like, Bloodborne, I enjoy it more. I prefer it over Dark Souls. I can admit that Dark Souls objectively is better. Dark Souls is more of a complete package, whereas Bloodborne was kind of rushed, was kind of like 7/8 baked. I don't want to say half baked because it wasn't half baked. It was sort of like it needed like just a couple more minutes in the oven. Oh, you guys took it out of the oven too early. It's fine. We'll cook the last of it and release it as DLC in the Old Hunters. Okay. Like, I like it more because it's an original thing. The lore and setting and shit is completely original. It doesn't have any of the baggage from Dark Souls and Demon Souls. It's completely its own thing. Even the dynamic of the magic, which is blood and arcane, aren't analogous to to magic and miracles anymore at all. It's completely a different thing. Like, blood originates from, the, like, bestial, primal urges, the, like, raw desire for power that inherently is corrupting in all of mankind, that all of mankind possesses. And, like, we all just want more power, and that's what the blood possesses. And, the closer you get to blood, the more closer you come to giving into the fucking savagery of the beast. And then arcane is the other side of the coin, where it's about seeking knowledge. Instead of power, you're seeking knowledge of things that man was not meant to know. You are studying the old ones. Is it the Great Old Ones? I always get it confused. Cthulhu. To try and, like, line the inside of your mind with eyes and be like, yo, fucking trippy. And then, like, you learn it, and oh, my man was not meant to know. Your head explodes. And you want to become, like, that's the dynamic. It's beasts and the kin, the, like, derivatives of the Great Old Ones. It's complete, like, you can't even compare it because it's this completely new thing. And you can argue about the execution of it in game. You can have that argument. But in terms of setting and lore, Bloodborne is complete. It's got that spark again that Demon Souls had of just, it's a completely, like, original penned, not like, it's derivative of H.P. Lovecraft. It's derivative of, Hammer style, Bram Stoker style Victorian era horror, for sure. But it's not derivative of themselves. And that's all that's what I want. I like an occasional homage to your popular series is fine. But if you're just completely ripping yourself off, I want creators to be original, even if it means ripping off other creators. Just don't spin the wheels. That's what Dark Souls 3 feels like to me. It feels like they're spinning the fucking wheels. It almost feels like Miyazaki was like, just fucking like, oh, whatever, it's so famous. It feels like how Kojima was like, I don't want to fucking make Metal Gear anymore. Fuck you people. It almost feels like that, where he's like, just put a fork in it, just finish it off. Oh, it's the third one. The trilogy is over, you guys. No more Dark Souls. Fuck off. I didn't make the second one, and now I didn't make the second one, and now everyone's like, oh, this franchise. No, it's over now. Get the fuck out. I want to make original things. That's what I want. That's what I want FromSoft to do. I want every single game to be a new IP. That's what the idea in a perfect world. That's what I would want. And like, I feel like they do reasonably well, you know, like, but like I said, I haven't beaten the game yet. And like, I'll do real, you know, my actual final, like, give it some time to digest now that the meal is finished, thoughts on the game, like when I finish it. Because I haven't finished it yet, and I don't know. But like, to be honest, it just doesn't have that spark. It doesn't have that like, it's not sinking its hooks into me, you know? Like, you can watch that video, that shitty stream video of me playing Bloodborne, and you can hear me, how fucking engaged I am, how engrossed, how instantly fucking, like, smitten, almost, I am with the game. Like, oh yeah, I'm fucking on board from minute one, let's go. Dark Souls 3 isn't doing it for me. I'm not feeling the hooks. I don't... You know what it is I'm playing Dark Souls 3, and I'm playing it, and I'm like... just fighting the urge not to lean over and turn on the PS3 and pop in Dark Souls 1 and play that instead. I'm fighting the urge not to press the PS1 button and flick over and just start playing Bloodborne instead. I'm playing Dark Souls 3, and I want to be playing any other From Software game. Like, like, I'm playing, I'm like, this is good, I wish I was playing a version of this that was better. And it's disappointing because, like, gameplay-wise, it is probably the best one. It has all the quality of life improvements that 2 had over 1. It really expanded on the combat. Like, it made it faster, but it's still Dark Souls. Like, it fixed a lot of the problems that Dark Souls 1 had, where it's just really slow, melodious, tank and shank fucking tactics. Like, it took the best of both worlds, and the bosses are all really great. The bosses are all really fun and original. Like right off the bat, you fight the first guy and you're like, oh cool, a giant knight dude with the standard medieval weapon, okay. Like, oh, for a first boss, that's fine. I mean, the first boss in Dark Souls was like a fucking stray demon. But okay, so let's go, first boss. And then a fucking corrupted oil dragon bursts out his body, and you're like, what? And then the second boss you fight is a fucking beast from Demon Soul, from Bloodborne, in armor, and he's an ice dude. And then later you fight a boss that's a fucking tree. It's a fucking tree. And then you fight Artorias again, and it's badass. And you go into this like fucking nightmare of a dead skull, and you fight a giant skeleton warrior. And it's like, oh, it's so fucking, like, when I got to the fucking Skeleton Warrior boss, like, it was the environment you go in, and it's pitch black in every direction, but, like, there's still a ground, like, there's still a road, and then at the very other side of the screen, there's an item, like, luring you towards it, and you're like, ooh, ooh, and you go forward, and you see a giant fucking hand, and you almost can't see it, but you can see it, and it's a hand, and you're like, ah! And then you walk forward to get the item, and fucking skeleton. I legitimately freaked out. I was like, no, you scared me. You scared me, though. You scared me. You scared me with the skeleton. There's a skeleton inside you right now. It's waiting to get out. Like, I'm playing it, and I'm like, this is really good. I wish they took this gameplay and these bosses and put them in a better game. Like, I'm still, like, I am well open to this game pulling a Metal Gear Solid 2 and just completely blowing my socks off. I'm open to that possibility. I'm open to it being like, psych, turns out you're a fucking idiot. And I'm like, I'm ready for that again. I was ready for it when Metal Gear Solid 5 did a not douchebag, mean, pissed off, bitter, resentful version of that. Where it was like, yeah, good job, you're the big boss now. I was ready for that back when Metal Gear Solid 2 did, and it's like, you're a fucking loser nerd and you're playing a fucking video game. You're pretending to be a cool action hero. You're not. Fuck you. I'm good for that. I was ready when Spec Ops The Line did it, and it was pretty much the same thing as Metal Gear Solid 2. I was ready when Bioshock did it, and it's like, all you're doing is following the instructions being given to you over the radio and following a little arrow at the top of the screen, you fucking sheep. Cool beans. Let's go, video games. Let's do it. I'm ready for that from Dark Souls. I don't think I'm gonna get it. I'm hoping. You know, I'm hoping. I feel like I'm gonna be let down. Guess we'll see. Okay, haven't really beaten the game yet, 100% yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm at, like, the final stretch. You know, I'm, like, the last area. I've, like, got one more big boss to go, basically. And my feelings, again, have gotten a little bit better about the game. It's funny, like, this game, like, I started out really negative about it, and half of that was my fault because of my false assumption that it was a prequel, and I will own that. Plenty of legitimate complaints besides that, though, but, like, and, like, the more I played, the better I felt about it. Like, the boss fight against, like, the Abyss Watchers guys really was, like, the turning point for me, because that was an awesome boss fight, and, like, it's gotten even better since then, because of the areas, like, it actually does speak a little bit negatively about something else I'm going to talk about, but, like, the further you get into the game, the better I feel about it, the more quality I think there is. And, like, where I'm at right now, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. Because I'm not gonna, like, I feel like you could have cut the first third of this game, and it would be way better, I feel like, because the first couple areas aren't very good. Like, the castle place you start out in, That area's fine. Everything up to that first boss, the dog, ice dog guy, that's fine as like an intro area. It's very, it harkens back. It brings the mind to Boletaria, which is the first level in Demon Souls. And then, like, you got the Undead Suburb, which isn't great. And then you get to just, like, really not very good locations. Like, the Road of Sacrifice is just completely flash in the pan. The forest level is total shit. Like, whose bright idea was it to put, like, the Blight Town area as, like, the third stage in the game? Like, you didn't get to Blight Town until way late. Like, that's basically the halfway point of the game. And it's not very good. But, like, and it's completely skippable. Blight Town is completely skippable if you know what you're doing. This area was just really bad. It was just a slog. The catacombs also weren't enjoyable to any degree. Better than the catacombs in Dark Souls 1, I guess. You could say that about it. But at least Dark Souls 1's catacombs actually, like, did something kind of unique with the necromancer enemies that, like, otherwise the skeletons would continue to respawn. And it had this, like the motif was really enthralling because of Nito. He's a Nito kind of guy. But, like, the game, like, it really starts stepping it up when you get to the boss of the catacombs, which made me fucking freak out. I think I talked about that. But then, like, after you get past that, you get to the Boreal Valley, and that's when the game really starts to be like, okay, you've justified your existence. I said that in the video. I was like, this game needs to justify its existence to me. It did it. At the Boreal Valley and, where that leads, that totally justified its existence. Like, okay, this game, I'm okay with this now. But it took a long time. I was like fucking 18 hours in by the time I got to the Boreal Valley. And, like, the cathedral was good. Getting to the cathedral was agony, and not like in a fun, challenging kind of way. It was just tedious bullshit. The cathedral itself was kind of an interesting area, though. And it had, like, that was the first moment where the game did something, and I was like, oh! Like, because it had Patches betray you, but it did it in this way where I was like, oh, fuck! Because I think I glitched it up because I didn't see him before it happened, but I'm pretty sure I fucked up that event, but I started walking across this, like, railway, and then it started going down, like someone pulled a switch, and you turn around, and it's fucking Onion Bro! And he's like, never trusted Onion, ha ha ha! And I'm like, oh my god! It totally subverted my expectations, but then it turned out it wasn't Onion Bro, and it was just Patches who stole his armor. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, oh, I thought you were going to actually subvert my expectations there, Dark Souls. Like, good job tricking me into thinking that you were actually, like, taking advantage of my assumptions. Nope, my assumptions were 100% correct. And I looked it up, and I actually fucked up that event because you're supposed to be able to meet Patches before that happens, which I didn't for whatever reason. But the cathedral was, and had that great moment where, like, as soon as the cutscene ended, like, the giant is, like, right in your face, and like having someone just suddenly be like right here, that will freak you the fuck out. And I really liked the lore of that area because it had all these references to the deep, and I was like, what? Like, what's the deep? Is it talking about the abyss? But then it's like, it's not the abyss because it talked about references to water and an ocean. I'm like, are you talking about Bloodborne? Because Bloodborne had a lot of allusions to oceans. Like, ocean themes was a very big thematic point in Bloodborne. Especially in the DLC where you go to fucking... what's the H.P. Lovecraft story? It's, like, straight up the H.P. Lovecraft story, the fish people. The fish people of fucking, Innsmouth. Shadow over Innsmouth. Like, you straight up go to Innsmouth in the DLC of the Old Hunters. What was I saying? Yeah, Cathedral is interesting, and I do appreciate what it did with the lore. Like, this game's full of fucking references and fan service, a lot of fan service, which normally I would be kind of critical of, but to be like, I'm a sucker for fan service as much as anyone else, especially well executed fan service. Like, I can admit that it feels a little jerk-offy. You know, it does feel a little bit like, hey, and it's like, really? But at the same time, you're like, yeah, jerk me off game, it's fun. Yet, shockingly, zero references to Solaire that I have found so far. Like, nothing. Like, they are not milking that. I was very shocked. Like, they're milking Onion Bro, which is pretty rad. Like, Onion Bro is, like, fucking up there. Patches is in there because he has to be. He's, like, he's not so much a Souls character as he is a FromSoft character at this point. And then you've got, Anri, who I don't think I'm doing her quest correctly. I think I fucked that up, but like, you can very clearly tell that like she is what Oscar was supposed to be in the original Dark Souls, but they cut it, where it's like you're kind of your opposite, where in the original Dark Souls, Oscar, the guy who saved you, was originally supposed to keep going, and he was going to be kind of like your Virgil, and he would like do areas before you got there, and you'd meet up with him a couple times, and then he's sort of the final boss at the end. Not quite that, but she is like another chosen undead like you, trying to find the Lords of Cinder like you. And like, I can see what they're doing there. Like, it's taking something they wanted to do in the first game and then doing something original with it. And it's not like just, you know, beat for beat the same thing. It is playing with it a little bit. And like, the fucking boss fight with Onion Bro helping you out was fucking rad as shit. Like, it's taking a lot from Demon Souls, which is really fun. Not enough. Like, I can't believe they fucked up the level up lady again. They fucked it up 3 times. They got it right the first time, and then they kept fucking it up. I don't understand. There's not even an excuse for it this time, because it's Miyazaki working on it. They got it right the first time. It's so ridiculous. Anyway. But, like, feelings are gradually improving. It's still not, like, my favorite by far. But it is doing some things better than even the original Dark Souls did. Like, the original Dark Souls only really had 3 aesthetics. It had, you know, like, medieval fantasy, like, environment, darkness, like pitch black darkness, and hellscape, like fire, lava, hell, like real overt hell imagery. Though, like, go to any area in Dark Souls 1, and that is, like, it will fit into one of those three motifs: medieval, dark, or hell. And, like, the only area that didn't really fit into that was Ash Lake. But Ash Lake was just kind of a weird shared, was just fucking, like, that was wholly unique. But, like, it really only had 3 environments. This game does have a lot more environments to it. Like, it does have the medieval fantasy scape. It does have really dark environments. Actually, I haven't found one yet. No, like, the only one that was really like that was the boss fight, where it's just complete pitch blackness. I don't think the Abyss is really in this game. I don't think... I haven't run into any hellscapes yet, either. Huh. Like, it's got the fantasy environment, it's got the, like the medieval fantasy environment, like, nature environment, like the forest, and then a winter landscape. Which fits into its themes where it's like different kinds of apocalypse settings, you could almost say. Like a city that's in ruin, like settlements that have been overtaken by nature, like grass and swamp has just grown over top of it, and, you know, like a desolate tundra ice scape that's been frozen over, so no life can be found. And that's actually kind of interesting, because the tone of this game, like I mentioned before, how, like, it's stupid that it's still on life support. You know, I was saying, like, the world of Dark Souls is the world that's on life support, and in the original game, it's a world that's about to end. Like, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. Dark Souls 3 is the end of the world. Like, the world has ended. It's over. Everyone is dead. There's no one and nothing left anymore. It's all gone. Anyone who's still alive isn't even really alive. Like, it's very Fallout-y, where, like, it's just wasteland and then little settlements of survivors, most of whom are undead. Like, I understand now why it doesn't have the hollowed versus unhollowed, like, undead mechanic anymore. It's because everyone is undead now. And you're unique in that you're kindled, like, and unkindled. Like, you are the same kind of being as what the Lords of Cinder are, which is still stupid. That whole thing is fucking dumb, and I don't like it. But you're not an undead, and that's what makes you, like, the main character. Everyone in the world is undead. Everyone's a zombie. Like, it's a zombie apocalypse where no humans are left. It's just some people aren't hollow. Like, they still have a purpose and a reason to live, but everyone's an undead. No one's alive. The entire world is just fucking gone. It's ashes. And the only thing that's left are a couple of cinders. A couple of little sparks that don't give off heat. Like, there's no fire left, but it's still technically burning. Like, it's not completely void, but it's like the tone of the areas I just described, like, it's very post-apocalyptic. That's the kind of motif that it's going for. And I do like that. Like, that's the kind of thing that the sequel to Dark Souls should have. Like, Dark Souls 2 was fucking retarded, and it just kind of forgot that the world was supposed to be ending, and it was just like, and then all that was lost to history. No one really remembers anymore, because it's kind of cool. And it was, like, trying to imply that Drangleic was, like Lordran, but like a million billion years in the future, a million billion years into the future of the world that was about to fucking end, and it was all lost to history. I don't even know. Fan fiction. Dark Souls 3 was like, no, this is like I said, like at the beginning when it was saying like going to Lothric, and I was like, fuck you. But, like, as you play, it becomes very apparent that Lothric is Lordran. Like, it's sort of, like, on the other side of the hills. Like, it's just north of there. It's the same place. Because, like, it said Lothric is the place where all the various Lords of Cinder's kingdoms converge. And, like, you go a little bit south, and you hit Lordran, and you hit Anor Londo. You go to Anor Londo, and you're like, oh, fuck. And, like, oh, man, like, I was wandering around in the Boreal Valley, and I was like, is this fucking Anor Londo? And then you go upstairs, and you get to the fucking church, or whatever you want to say it was that fucking Guinevere was in, and you walk up the steps, and it's like Anor Londo, and you're like, oh! And then I moved the camera around, and I was like, who fucking... Like, you can see, like, Lothric in the distance, and you're like, what a bunch of assholes! Like, fuck you, City of the Gods, all the gods are dead and gone now, I'm gonna build my city higher than the City of the Gods. Like, what a bunch of fucking bourgeoisie cutbags. You can even see the Duke's archives. I was like, oh, it's the Duke's... Oh, how does it feel, Sif, to be a bitch? It was great. It was great. Like, I was like, oh, man. Like, that's how you do a fucking sequel. Fuck you, Dark Souls 2. Like, that's what I mean, where you can have fan service, and I'll be like, yeah! And, like, it was just a cool moment. And then you go down into, like, the profane capital, which I was like, is this supposed to be Izalith? Like, is this the Lost Izalith? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. It could be. It's underneath Anor Londo, right? But then, like, fuck, like, these games have always had a thing where when you're wandering around on the world map, there's no ambient music. Like, all of the sound effects and music that you hear in the game is completely diegetic. And I'm sure you know what diegetic means. Diegetic means it's like, it exists in the world. Like, if there's, like, a soundtrack or an orchestral score, like, that's not diegetic. That's, like, a soundtrack that you added in post-production. You know, like, you edited music on top of it. Diegetic music is, like, if you see a scene where, like, there's a song playing, but then, like, a character walks into the room and, like, turns off the radio and suddenly that song stops. That was diegetic. So the only time there's music in these games is usually in your hub area, your Nexus, your Firelink Shrine, your Nightmare, your Hunter's Dream, or in boss fights where the boss has a theme song. And it's usually a really fucking good song. But outside of that, when you're just wandering around the world, there's no music. And, like... This is the area where, like, the complete lack of sound really fucked me up. Because it's not 100% silent. Like, there's this faint, very distant sound of, like, wind. Because it's just a bunch of dilapidated towers and shit. Like, it's this ruins and just deep chasms and whatnot. But it's not 100% silent. but there's no noise. And there's no enemies, almost. Like, there's a couple enemies, but, like, there's, like, 3 enemies in the entire area. And they are, like, way the fuck over there, and they come over to you. But other than that, there's, like, nothing. It's, like, completely lifeless. Like, ironically, it felt like you were walking around in a grave. Compared to the fucking catacombs, which was just skeleton warrior. Like, these are good areas, you know? Great, like, that fucking Miyazaki level design. It's not perfect. It's not 100%. Like, there's still some parts where I'm like, the shortcuts feel a little lazy. A little bit in this, because almost all of the shortcuts are, like, directly connected to a bonfire. So, like, you don't like, if you get to that shortcut, you can literally go straight from the bonfire right back to where you just were, with almost no, like, travel in between. To the point where, like, when you get to the boss of that area, and if you die and you start picking the bonfire, you can pretty much do a straight shot straight to the boss again without dealing with any enemies whatsoever. And it's like, in some of the older games, getting back to the enemy to the boss was half the challenge. But there's a lot less of that here, but that's sort of a minor complaint. Yeah. Again, haven't beaten it yet. I'm pretty close, though. So we'll see. But I can't be hating anymore. I can't be hating. Like, before, I was kind of like, why even have this game? You didn't need this game. Now I'm like, yeah, no, I can see why they did it. Makes sense. You, like, yeah. If for no other reason to like, put a cap on it, like, I can totally see now why Miyazaki was like, no, it's over. We're done. No more Dark Souls after this. No more. We finished. Stop. Don't ask me for another fucking Dark Souls. We're not making it. It very much has that feeling like it's fucking dead. Don't you see? Did you see Anne Orlando? It's fucking dead. The giant's dead. Everyone's gone. Eat a dick. It's over. It doesn't feel malicious. It just feels depressing. You know, it feels like you saved the world. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. Pretty good game. Let's see. I fixed the audio! Yay! Hooray! Now it's not gonna be fucking clipping and fucking peaking like fucking insanity. I don't even know. Like, let me see if I can do something. Like, here's what happened. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. Recording microphone. This was set to here, and now I'm sure the audio is just freaking out again. But for some reason, like, it was always here. I've always had it here, and that makes it, like, super quiet, actually. But for some reason, before I started that Dark Souls 3 video, something had set it to be here. And I don't know why. I certainly didn't do it. So fucking that happened, and it was a catastrophe for everyone involved. So, like, please excuse the fucking abysmal, horrific, unlistenable quality of the video before this part, and also the Dark Souls 3 video. Just, it's so awful. I have no idea what the fuck. But anyway, finished Dark Souls 3. It's done. And personally, I'm done with it. I don't have any drive or desire to like continue exploring the world and find stuff I missed or like do a new game plus. I'm done. Like I finished it and I'm glad I did because that final boss fight was fucking awesome. And it's actually really funny. I'm going to upload the video. And the reason I uploaded the video and it says like fuck off, I hate you all is because I was trying to fight it the way I usually play these games, which is with sword and board, you know, where I go in with the sword and I got my shield and I block the shit and I hit the shit and it's all shit, right? And I was like, you know, and it was just a brick wall, you know. I was getting to the second phase of the boss fight, but I couldn't, you know. It was really I was having trouble with it. And you know, I'm not complaining about that, but it was you know how it is. It gets fucking frustrating a little bit. And I was like, how anyone plays this game without a shield is beyond me because it's fucking ridiculous. And I did it like I tried fighting this boss like 15 times, I think. I'm a scrub. I was like level 70, I think. Anyway, and I was fucking trying to fight him. Wasn't working out. I tried it without the shield. Also wasn't working out. And I was like, everyone's dumb. And then on Twitter, I was like, I'm going to try like 5 times to do this without a shield. And if I can't do it within those 5 attempts, you're all faggots. And that was my second attempt. The video I posted. So I finally beat him without a shield. And I feel like such like fuck all of you. Fuck you all. Shut up. Okay. Anyway. That was a fantastic boss fight. Did you see that shit? You might not even appreciate how fucking great that was. Because like it kept fucking changing up its style. Like it's like all of the fucking chosen undeads from the very first game. All of the different gameplay styles you could do. Minus having a shield, which is kind of weird when you think about it. And then, like, you beat it, and then it changes to being fucking Lord Gwyn. And the fucking music, that's Lord Gwyn's, like, type into Google right now, type in Lord Gwyn's theme, or, like, final boss music of Dark Souls 1. The fucking piano, dun dun dun, dun dun, dun dun. Dun doo 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 dun doo 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 dun doo 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 doo. It's fucking. I was like, oh! It happened the first time. I was like, what? And he's fighting you like Lord Gwyn, and it's like this is what Lord Gwyn should have been. Because like everyone rags on fucking the Gwyn fight in the first game, and like I never had that problem because like I don't parry, and like that speaks more to me about me than the game. But I usually don't. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at the parrying or the dodge rolls and stuff. I mean, I guess I wasn't. I hadn't fucking really been all that into. I hadn't played Bayonetta the first time I played Dark Souls, so that might have changed things. But I was always so fucking annoyed by people who are like, exploit the invincibility frames. No, fucking just min-maxing Munchkin fucking, it reminds me of Smogon players in Pokemon. How they're like, you have to use like fucking tier lists. I hate that shit. Play the game the way you want to play the game. And I remember the gay, gay. Fucking anyway. I can't complain because it turns out they were right. I beat the final boss without a shield. Everyone always complained about the Gwyn fight because you can fucking parry him, and then you can like beat him in like 3 hits because you can just parry him over and over and over. I never had that problem. Gwyn was always pretty fucking hard for me, but like it still was kind of a lackluster last boss fight because it was just like a guy, and like it was trying to set up to be the Virgil fight, like it's a guy who's you, right? But it wasn't, it wasn't bombastic. That was a bombastic final boss fight. Like, oh man, don't make a Dark Souls 4. And then I got like I tried leaving. I tried leaving to be like, fuck you, I'm gonna be the Dark Lord. Let the flame go out, motherfuckers. But no, I guess there's no multiple endings in this game, which is fucking super weird. I'm sure if I looked it up, I'd find like, no, you needed to fucking do this really completely obscure thing. Why didn't you eat the umbilical cords? You fucking you fought you fought the soul of Cinder and you didn't eat the umbilical cords? WTF is the matter with you? I'm sure it's something like that. I'm sure I didn't eat the umbilical cords. But yeah, so the only ending available to me was linking the fire again, which is kind of lame. You just go it was kind of funny in the first game because you're being like in the first game you're being tricked, right? You're being fed this bullshit story about the chosen undead prophecy. And so when you beat Gwyn and you link the first flame and the first flame, fucking continues burning on using your soul as the kindling, your character looks surprised. Like he touches the bonfire and he starts lighting on fire and he starts looking at his hands and kind of freaking out like that he burns to fucking death because fire. And like because you didn't do it on purpose, you didn't know. You didn't know that that was what was going to happen. You thought you were going to, I guess it's like it's sort of appropriate because it's like, a reward as you deserve because the way they sell it to you is, oh, you're going to replace Gwyn, the Lord of the Gods or whatever. Like, oh, the Gwyn is the fucking super high up badass. He's like the king. He's the motherfucking king, and you got to go kill him and replace him, and then you'll be the king. And you're like, yeah, I want to be the king. Yeah. King of Cinders. That's what you fucking get. Greedy little bitch. Greedy little bitch. Because all you're doing is, like, you're replacing Gwyn on his throne of cinders, where he went to link the first flame and preserve the Age of Fire for a fleeting couple generations, and then his soul fucking started extinguishing. The flame was going out again, so you got to go down there and fucking relight it, throw your own fucking corpse onto that shit. You're replacing Gwyn as the Lord of Cinder. It's great. It's fucking great. And of course, like I said, I always said, fuck you, let it die. Let it fucking die. And become the Dark Lord, which, again, was kind of like... if I could do anything to the ending of Dark Souls, I would take out the Dark Lord thing. Because, like, that doesn't actually make any sense. Like, you're supposed to be, like, the ruler of the Age of Darkness, which is where, humanity and the Abyss consumes the planet or whatever. Like, the fire's gone and all that remains is darkness and the Abyss. And you rule over fucking the Abyss? That doesn't make sense. Like, I'm fine, like, I don't need to be the Dark Lord. I'm fine with just letting the world die because it needs to die. It's done. It's over. Let it end. All good things must come to an end. We're done here. And with Dark Souls 3, it's even more fucked up because, like, your character, he lights the flame and he catches on fire and he doesn't look very surprised. He's just like, you, 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 you. And he just sits down and he's the new soul of cinders or whatever. Like, in the same position that the boss was sitting in when you first walked in there. And it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, like, you did it. You saved the world. This fucking dead, hollow, soulless husk, this fucking breathing corpse of a world continues to fucking wheeze on, lifeless and hopeless for another couple of 100 years or whatever. Save the world. It's even more fucked up because like Dark Souls 1 was a world that was cheating on the edge. Dark Souls 3 it's gone. It's fucking gone. There's nothing to preserve here. So it's really depressing that like unless you eat the umbilical cords, I guess, like there's nothing else for you, and it's kind of a letdown of an ending. I mean, at least in the Dark Souls ending, when you leak the flame, you're like, "Whoa!" And it's all crazy and shit. And this one, you link the flame, and you're like, yeah, sit down. Better boss fight though. Worse ending cutscene, better final boss fight. All the bosses in this game are really great. All the bosses in this game are really great. I really liked, Dragon Slayer armor. I uploaded the video of that too. Like, yeah, for the third time, let's fight Ornstein for the third time, you guys. Remember how cool Ornstein and Smo was in the first game? Fight him again in Dark Souls 2. Oh, did you remember how fucking cool Ornstein was in fucking Dark Souls 1 and 2? Fight him again! It's better though because like he has a completely different like in Dark Souls 2, it was literally just a rip. Like the same animations, the same attacks, no differences whatsoever. Like they painted his suit black. Boss fight. Here's the Sith boss fight, except there's ads. Here's a fucking guy with a shield and sword. Dark Souls 2, you guys. I'm mean. I'm so mean. But it sucked, so it's okay. In this one, at least, he has the shield. He has a different weapon. The moonlit butterflies are flying around, fucking sticking their dicks in your ear. It's a different fight, and it's a good fight. It's a really fun fight. All the fights in this game are really fun. Like the second to last boss with like the brothers, that was a really good fight. I always love when you get to a point in Dark Souls where like the enemies are fucking killing you in like 2 hits, and you're killing them in like 2 hits. That's always fucking great. Like the amount of like it's just a DPS race where like you're causing so much damage to them, but they're taking off like fucking half of your life bar in 1 hit, right? And like the Dukes are the fucking might as well have been just the Dukes. The final area was kind of a letdown. I mean, after fucking Anor Londo and after fucking Dungeon, yeah, the Profane Capital. The Profane Capital and Boreal Valley were the best areas in the game. All the other areas were kind of a letdown. The last areas, I mean, it was kind of cool that you walk in and it's just the Duke's archives again, and fucking like quote unquote Big Hat Logan's up there being a fucklet. Like that was cool. Like that first moment was cool where you walk in and it's like, oh shit, it's fucking the Duke's archives. They just built a castle around the Duke's archives, I guess, right? But that was cool. But like the final castle area was kind of a letdown because it's just a castle area. I don't know, like this game only really had like 3 great levels, you know? All the other ones were kind of like it was cool how they had the sun that was just, bleeding. That was kind of cool. I had the eclipse going on, even though I don't get it. Like what? Why is that there? Ha- what is that? What is that? And why? And how come it was never visible anywhere else on the world map? How come it only spawned into existence the second you walked into, Lothric Castle? It wasn't visible from outside Lothric Castle. And then it was in the kiln. The kiln of the kiln didn't make any sense either, because like, oh, you fucking like burned the Lords of Cinder on their thrones. And then like, oh, it's killing the first flame, and that's a cool reveal. And you walk outside, and the sun is all fucked up and shit, and that's a cool reveal. But when you actually think about it, what? Like, was all that a dream or something? I don't like. Did I get teleported, or did burning the Lords of Cinder just magically immediately turn the entire world map into? I should have done a pan. I should have done a quick pan first because it actually doesn't make any sense. The whole castle and shit that was like right there outside of Firelink Shrine, it's suddenly all like collapsed and burned into ruins. And like the kiln of the first flame in the first game was such a great area, right? It was one of those areas where like half the challenge was getting to the final boss, and this one like bonfire, final boss right here. Just walk up there, just throw yourself into that meat grinder. But in the first game, like you had to offer the fucking souls to the Lord Vessel, and you walk down the stairs, and all these ethereal fucking knights were walking around, and you walk through, and it's like the kiln of the first flame, and it's just this fucked up environment where everything is burned. Just oh man, like you can imagine that like in its heyday of the Age of Fire, the entire area was just awash in flames. Just constantly the entire thing was on fire, like this searing fucking melting heat, and everything is just ash and cinder, and it's fucking great. And you go through and there's all the silver knights, and then you go like into the kiln, like you gotta hop across shit to get in there, and then like all that's left is fucking Gwyn and this one little bonfire, and it's like fading and it's fucked up, and then you light it and it goes foosh, and all the fire's back again. You've relit the first flame, and this like it's the same environment but a little bit fucked up. And then you walk upstairs, and there's this area that's like kind of a crater ish. And then you beat him, and you relink the fire, and it's just you're on fire now. I mean, like, thematically, that is appropriate that it's not a giant whoosh of flames. Like, all you're doing is like an extra log on this fucking cinder. Like the flame, like it's so futile. It's so fucking pointless and futile to even keep bothering. Like you're sacrificing the souls of 5 god kings, and then the guy who killed the 5 god kings just to keep a little bit of fucking like. Originally, it was like, but like all you can do now is, no matter how much wood you're throwing on there, it's just little bit of fire, little bit of fucking crackle, little bit of sparks. You know? So thematically that makes sense. Like this world's fucking so past gone, right? But the environment doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, is it not the same area? It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look even remotely like. I mean, I can not complain about that. Like you can kind of like argue one way or the other, whatever. I'm not going to complain that it's not a complete recreation of the original kiln from the first game, but it doesn't make it. I don't understand why like whatever. It doesn't fucking matter, right? Games like okay, like final thought. Like I'm not I'm done. You know. I feel it feels mean saying that almost, but like I was really just, forcing myself to fucking finish this game at this point. Like it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game. Like if you wanted to be 100% objective, like like you could reasonably argue that this is the best gameplay. This is the best game of the Souls series. Like, Bloodborne is doing its own thing. I don't think it's fair to compare them, but like, of Demons Dark and Dark 2, this is like the, and it incorporated like the best aspects that would fit appropriately from Bloodborne. So like, it's the best of both worlds. It's the greatest hits. It's the greatest hits collection, right? So like, gameplay wise, take this gameplay and put it back into any of the other Souls games, and it improves dramatically. Like, I would never say that the original, like, Demon Souls especially, is not a perfect game. Like, there's so much you can add and fix to that. Because you know me, like, my definition of a perfect game is a game that you cannot add anything to or take anything away from that would improve the experience. It is complete. It is whole. And none of the Souls games have been perfect games. They're phenomenal games. They're fantastic games. Like fucking 8.9s to 10s. Right? And so like I guess when I'd rank it, like if I'm gonna take a sit back here, I'd say, there's Dark 2, which is like an 8.9. Way at the bottom here, way at the very bottom of the scale, is an 8.9 Dark Souls 2. Then you got your 9 at Demon Souls. And then you got your like 9.4, 9.5, like 9.5 Bloodborne and Dark Souls. I would give them the same score, right? Like maybe I would add a decimal or take away a decimal depending on what day it is. Like it really goes back and forth in my mind which one's better, Dark Souls 1 or Bloodborne. Like on any given day, I would say like Dark Souls 9.4, Bloodborne 9.6, Dark Souls 9.6, Bloodborne 9.4, but like generally I would say they're both up there. Demon Souls is a 9. I would put Dark 3 above Demon Souls. I would put it like a 9.3 or something like that. And that hurts to do. That hurts to do that because in a lot of ways, I think Demon Souls is a better game than Dark Souls 3. In a lot of ways. But like the gameplay improvements have been so vast and extraordinary since Demon Souls that it's really rough to go back to Demon Souls. Like play Dark Souls 3 and then go back to Demon Souls. See what fucking happens. It's gonna fuck you up, right? Ugh. Like I think Demon Souls is so much better in so many ways, but Dark 3, like as a video game, I'd put it third place. Dark Souls 3 is third. But like way above Dark with Dark 2, which isn't even in the running compared to the other ones, right? And then Demon Souls, which is like a fucking uncut diamond. It's a flawed, uncut, like, you just pulled it out of the ground. And aw shit, son. Let's, like, polish this shit down and cut it down, but, like, you pulled it out, and aw man, that's quite a find. You found yourself a ruby, baby. And then Dark is this, like, really fucking polished, fucking cut, fucking, fucking emerald, and Bloodborne is a fucking amethyst or something, like, like an opal or something, like, it's comparable, but it's not the same thing, right? Like, you got your fucking ruby and sapphire here, right? That's a great comparison, I think. Ruby and Sapphire, Bloodborne and Dark Souls. And then Dark 3 is, fucking, I don't know, a diamond? Like, you'd think diamonds, maybe a pearl. Maybe a pearl. Dark Souls 3 is a pearl. I would say that. Like, you cracked open that hard shell, and you found the pearl inside. But you had to really fucking, like, get your fingers all clammy, and you might break a fucking fingernail trying to get the fucking thing to fucking pry open. But there was a pearl in there. That's what Dark Souls 3 is. I'm fucking a genius. And you know, like, the pearl's great, but I don't want to dig through the fucking clam. I don't want to dig through the fucking clam. Like, I was really forcing myself to finish this game. And it's not a bad game, but I just... It doesn't have it. It doesn't have that it factor to me, you know? That Demon Souls had, that Dark had, and Bloodborne had, that fucking... like, I was sitting here, like... Here's what happened. Here's what happened. I was sitting here trying to, like, okay, we gotta finish Dark Souls 3. Let's go. And I was like... And I thumbed the analog stick over, and I started playing Bloodborne. And I just started playing Bloodborne. I started up a new character in Bloodborne, and I just started playing it for 4 hours. And I looked at the clock, and I was like, fuck. I was supposed to be playing Dark Souls 3. And instead I was playing Bloodborne for like 4 fucking hours straight. That's what it does. Like, I have to force myself to play Dark Souls 3. I can't stop myself from playing Bloodborne. Like, I have to physically drag myself away when it's Bloodborne. That's the final cut for me. Like, when it comes right down to it, those are my final thoughts. And, you know, like, I might feel better or worse about it, because, like, I'm coming right off. You know, like, the credits just finished rolling. You know, like, I just beat the game. Immediate final impressions, you know? But, in a couple days, I'll digest it. My feelings might change one way or the other, but ultimately, I'm done. I'm sure I've only played, like, fucking 60% of the game. I'm sure I missed, like, half the game. I'm sure there's so much more here, but, I'm done. You know? It was a good game. It was a good game. I can't really see myself ever playing it again. Unless I got, like, I don't want to spend $60. I already feel kind of bad I spent $6 on my fucking Redbox. I've had this for, like 4 or 5 days now. Because it took me so long to get through it, not because it's a hard game, not because there's a lot to do, but because I didn't want to fucking play it. Right? I feel bad I spent this much money. I'm definitely not going to spend $60 on or more so on the fucking season pass. Fucking Dark Souls has a season pass. Fuck you. Right? Come on. Like, do you remember when Artorias of the Abyss was a big deal? Do you remember that? Like, the first, like, DLC for a Souls game, right? Like, Demon Souls came out, and they had to cut an entire level from that game. They had to cut an entire fucking world from that game. And they just never, like, it was gone, like, left completely on the cutting room floor. And then they did Dark 1. And they finished it, and then they were like, hey, guys, let's take some of this shit we cut from the game and make a DLC. And they're like, what's a DLC? It's like an expansion pack. Do you remember that? Do you remember back in the days of StarCraft? And you were playing your StarCraft, and then, what? An expansion pack? Brood Wars. Oh my goodness. It adds so much to the game. It adds so much more story, and it improves on the gameplay. An expansion pack. Do you remember that? Yeah, they call it DLC now. Is it the same thing? If you do it right. If you do it right. And they did it right. They fucking did it right. They said, let's take this shit, like, the game's done, it's shipped. Let's take the shit that we didn't have time to finish and make a DLC out of it. And that was Artorias of the Abyss. And it was arguably better than the main game. It was really superb. Like, the characterization, the level design, it added to the story. Like, before Artorias of the Abyss came out, You just heard about, Artorias from like a couple of the items you got after the Sith fight, and you heard about like Ornstein. He was part of the four Knights of the Lord Gwyn. And like, who were the other three? And you got these rings, and they were like the Hornet ring and the Hawk ring and the Wolf ring and the Lion ring, and you read them like the four Knights of Lord Gwyn, like fucking Artorias. Like, who the fuck's Artorias? Apparently, he really fucking like loves wolves, and he fought Sif, and you're like, what the fuck? And you get the Covenant of the Abyss ring, and you like fucking Artorias had to make a fucking pact with the Abyss, and you're like, what? Did the fucking did one of the Knights of Lord Gwyn fucking betray him and start working for the Abyss, the literal exact opposite of fire? What? Whoa! And then you go and you do Artorias in the Abyss. And you go back in time to when Artorias like fucking did that, and you fight him, and he's like possessed by the Abyss, and it's like, oh man, this hero charged in there and tried to take on the Abyss, and it corrupted him, it possessed him and infected him, made him a perversion of everything that he once was. Like, he fucking broke his arm, but his like darkness possessed body is still fighting with his great sword, and it's fucking Guts from Berserk. Like, it's literally just Guts, and he's wearing the fucking wolf armor, and he's using the great sword, and he's doing the fucking shit. And it was like, oh, Artorias, you were so cool, buddy. Oh man, that was great. And then Bloodborne did it right too, because like they shipped the game, and then they were like, okay, game is done. Start working on DLC because the game is done. Start like, let's take all this shit. You remember that fucking idea for a clock tower and a nightmare and fucking Maria that we didn't have time for? Let's start making that. Hey, remember that idea for a fucking like Shadow over Innsmouth Fish Village? And like the final fight against Cosm. Some say some say Cosm. Start working on that, and we'll release 2 DLCs, like the fucking Nightmare Workshop and the fucking Fish Village. And then they were like, let's just put them both together and sell them as one thing. The Old Hunters DLC. And that was what that was. It was 2 very, very obviously and distinctly 2 different DLCs that they just mashed together and shipped out there because fucking FromSoft and Miyazaki are fucking cool guys. And now we have Dark Souls 3, and it's like, Season Pass, because we're gonna make DLC. Hey, the game's not out yet. Buy the Season Pass, because we're gonna release DLC, even though the game isn't finished yet. We're not finished with the game yet, but we already have DLC planned. Fuck you. Suck my fucking dick. I'm not spending $90 on this game. I fucking, the Season Pass is like $30. Old Hunters was 15. Isn't it funny how like I'm trying to talk about Dark Souls 3 and I keep getting distracted and talking about Dark Souls and Bloodborne instead? Because those games are so fucking good. Whatever. It was a good game. It was a good game. I feel bad that I don't like it. That's how I feel with these games, Like, it feels like, buddy. Like, what other game can you say that about? I feel bad that I don't like it. I felt bad that I didn't like Dark Souls 2. That changed. I don't feel bad anymore. That game sucks. But at the time, I was like, I want to like this game so much. I want to like this game. And it's not very good. It's not very good. 8.9. That's what it's like with these games, because they are fucking Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3. These, like, any other game that came out this year can't even compete, I feel like. Like, this came out in 2016, right? What else came out this year? that's even remotely, comparable. What's going to come out this year that's even close? Nothing. Like, I would rather play Dark Souls 3 than any other given fucking AAA fucking 7 or mid 8 game that's going to be coming out for the rest of the year, right? It's still the upper echelon. It's still, nothing can touch it. It's still better than almost all of its competition. But when you compare it to any other given Souls game, and that's how I feel. Like, I'm not comparing these to other games because you can't. They're uncomparable. It's not even a competition. They're better than almost every other game because they're video games, right? Like, these are fucking peaking accomplishments of what the medium is capable of doing, right? They make like fucking like it's rare the games that like dying is part of the narrative, right? Because so many games you die and it's like in Prince of Persia: Sands of Time where you die and he's like, no, no, wait, that didn't happen. Like, let me start over. Like, oh, that didn't count. Rewind to a checkpoint. In Dark Souls, you dying over and over and over and over again is part of the story. You dying over and over and over again and struggling and like flailing in frustration and agony against the dying of the light. It's part of the narrative. And that's why the faggots who are like, Dark Souls 3 needs an easy mode are idiots who just need to be like castrated and strung up by their thumbs because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. The difficulty, and these games aren't even really difficult, they just require patience, right? They're not hard, they just demand patience. They demand that you pay attention and you get on your A game, and they punish the slightest mistake very severely. They were like, why did you do that? Like, it's rare. It's rare the hit or death that happens in these games that wasn't your fault. Like, sometimes it's a little bullshit, right? Sometimes. But like half of it's supposed to be trial and error. Like, how could I have possibly predicted that that was going to happen? Well, now you know it's going to happen, so you don't have an excuse anymore. The first one, okay, how could you have known? From now on, now you know. You know it's in their arsenal. You know they're capable of doing that. You have no excuse anymore. Don't let it happen again. You let it happen again. You allowed it to happen again. Good job. You're an idiot. And that's part of the narrative. If there was an easy mode, it'd be like Paprika. Have you seen Paprika? That movie's phenomenal. It'd be like watching Paprika in black and white. That's what easy mode in Dark Souls is like. You are literally removing half of the point of the game, of the narrative. The difficulty is part of the point. Oh, why is Schindler's List in black and white? They should add a color mode for because privilege or whatever. It's too hard. You're stupid. The whole point is that it's difficult. That's the point. That's like Miyazaki talks about over and over and over and over and over because that's the only thing people ever fucking ask him. And I'm sure he must be so frustrated with it by this point. Where like every single time a new Souls game comes out, they're like, how do you feel about how like people say it's so difficult? He's like I don't make these games to be difficult. I make them to be challenging so that players get more invested in the setting and they get more immersed in the environment, and so that when they overcome a challenge, so that when they defeat the boss that's killed them 20 times and it's been so hard and they're fucking breaking their controllers and bashing their head against the wall,
when they finally beat him, the amount of satisfaction and relief that comes when you finally overcome that mountain, when you fucking complete that obstacle, like there's no other feeling like that in the world, right? What else is even remotely comparable? Like, fuck you, boss, that killed me 20 times. I finally beat you, you're fucking dead. Victory achieved. You know? They're not hard just for the sake of being hard. The difficulty, which isn't really difficulty, it's just, fucking. It's like what games used to be honest. Remember when games were like so hard and they had a live system because like in actuality, if you had a save system, if you had a checkpoint system, if you had infinite lives, you could beat them in like 3 minutes. Like it's the difference between, you know, like playing Contra nowadays on an emulator and beating it in like an hour versus playing it as a kid and it took an entire fucking weekend. Like you rented Contra and you played it for that whole weekend and you took it back and you didn't finish it. Gotta take the SNES cart back. I didn't finish it. Gotta rent it again next week. That's how it was like, right? It's not hard. It's just it didn't dumb itself down the way the rest of gaming did. It didn't say, hey, you don't play video games every single day. Like, hey, person who doesn't play games 8 hours a day, like, minimum. You want to play games too, right? Here you go. Here's a game meant for someone who doesn't play games enthusiastically as a primary interest. Dark Souls isn't for those people. Dark Souls is for the people who, you know, no, make it easier for me though. All video games need to fucking like these people are the reasons gaming fucking sucks now. These people are the reasons that Dark Souls is such a fucking relief. It's such a breath of fresh air from the fucking like crippling accessibility of other games. And of course they don't appreciate that because they're fucking spoiled children who want the entire fucking world to revolve around them. This doesn't appeal to like this is built for a demographic that I don't belong to. What an injustice. Everything needs to appeal to me. Didn't you know that? The world needs to revolve around me. It's too hard. Make it easier for me. Fucking suck a donkey dick with AIDS, you fucking piece of shit. I did a fucking write-up. I'm still really proud of this. That I did. It's called, like, Getting into Dark Souls, aka Dark Souls for Beginners. Bullet number 1. It's not too hard for you. Dark Souls has a reputation, not helped by its own marketing campaign, but it's best to just ignore that. Dark Souls is definitely not some giant, towering, impossible game that separates the hardcores from the casuals and is simply beyond your ability. It's merely a game. It operates under a structure of rules and mechanics that can be learned by anyone, no different from any other game, from Tetris to Mario Bros. To Street Fighter. If it's the first video game you've ever played in your entire life, it's probably going to be a bit too much, but anyone can learn how to play and enjoy Dark Souls. Be confident. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask for help. All that being said, Dark Souls is fucking hard. And there's absolutely no shame in needing a helping hand. Put all notions of pride and personal achievement aside. Shut out the voices saying you're cheesing it or ruining your own experience. If you're having trouble, it's always better to stop and look for assistance than bash your head against a brick wall until you get so frustrated you end up quitting the game. If you get stuck, look it up. Remember, there's no permanent record that is being tainted by admitting you've hit a wall and need someone else to help you get through it. Number 3, be patient. There are very few times where running blindly naked through an area is the proper method. Sometimes it is, but rarely. At every opportunity, go through the game with your shield up, enter every room slow after waiting a few seconds to see if any kind of trap or ambush is waiting for you, and check your corners. Unless you're at a bonfire, never assume you're safe. You will be amazed at how often getting antsy and just trying to charge through something will get you killed. Speaking of, number 4, don't be afraid to die. Unless you're psychic, there's just some things you're not going to see coming. Dark Souls is based just as much around trial and error as anything else, and sometimes you really are going to be expected to try a room or fight and die and die and die and die over and over again until you finally know what every encounter is going to entail reflexively. Some bosses and even enemies are just going to have fuck you moves you aren't going to be able to recognize the tell for until you've been on the receiving end of it. And there's just flat out no way you're going to get through Sense Fortress your very first time without dying at least once. Whether it's through an entire new area or from something stupid in a place you've passed through a dozen times, you're going to die. However, it's not that big a deal, believe it or not. Everything you lose from dying can easily be regained somewhere else, and best case scenario, you'll be able to recover what you lost by making it back to the spot you died at, so the tangible losses involved with dying are negligible. Of course, psychologically speaking, it can be easy to get frustrated, which is understandable, and after a certain point it might just be best to take a break and go calm down before coming back to the game and trying again. Every death should be a learning experience, a moment that makes you go, okay, don't do that again, or okay, block and or dodge when they move like that, etc., etc. Because keep in mind, if it can kill you, you can kill it. And damn, won't that feel good when you do? The rest of it's, not relevant to Dark Souls 3. But yeah, like, even more so, Dark Souls 3 is the easiest Souls game I have ever played. Like, by far. Like, I got my Estus Flask to 11 plus 5. That means, like, I can take 11 swigs from my Estus Flask, and they do 5 times the healing that they did when I originally got it. What the fuck? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, holy shit. In Dark Souls 1, you could get your Estus Flask up to 20, but you had to sacrifice humanity in order to do it. Right? You had to, like, beat a boss at the end of a kind of a tough area to get an item that would let you sacrifice humanity, which is a valuable resource in order to boost bonfires to give you 20 Estus every time you sat down, and you had to do that for every bonfire, right? It's not like you could boost one bonfire to plus 20 and then go to a new bonfire and have it be the same thing. Like, the way it works is like, well, I'm on a ramble, but like, Dark Souls has always allowed you to more or less control the difficulty. There are methods in the game to make it easier for you, right? And Dark Souls 3, by far the easiest one. It has the most avenues to just, like, ridiculous, and, like, it's really fair. Like, to the point where I would say it's too easy. Like, not too easy, but, like, it's too generous. That's the word I'm looking for. It's too generous. Like I just said right there, that final boss fight, the bonfire is right here, the boss room is right here, and you just walk back and forth. In Dark Souls 1, getting to the final boss fight was half of a pain in the ass. It was pain in half of your ass, right? Like, depending on the kind of player you are, getting there was harder than the fight itself, right? Yeah. But, like, no, Too hard though. It's too hard. Make an easy mode. Make an easy mode. Make an easy mode for me. Fucking, I can shit talk Dark Souls 3 all day, and I would be tempted to, but fucking Miyazaki is never going to add an easy mode for people. He makes these games for him first, and he's a masochist, and he loves his hard fucking video games, baby. You don't like it? Go play Gone Home. Go play Her Story. Go play fucking Sunset, you fucking whiny little bitch. Dark Souls is for fucking gamers. Not, like I said in my article, like, it's not too hard. All it needs is patience. If you're willing to give this game the patience that it deserves, you can beat it. But no, anyway, never gonna happen, right? Go play something else. I'm gonna play something else. Go play Stardew Valley. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play me some Stardew Valley. I just got a chicken coop. I just got a fucking chicken coop, and it's summer, and all of my spring crops died, and I felt so shitty about that. But them's the breaks. That's XCOM, baby. Oh man, fucking XCOM is also a really great game. There's so many great video games, you guys. So many great video games. I am degenerating into complete nonsense. I haven't eaten yet. I've been away for like 5 hours. I don't think I ate anything yet. Jesus Christ. Dark Souls 3, 9.3 out of 10. Great game. Not as good as Dark Souls 1 or Bloodborne. Like, you can argue Dark Souls or Bloodborne being better or worse than each other. I don't think you'd be able to argue that Dark Souls 3 isn't as good as Bloodborne or Dark Souls 1. But whatever. 9.3, good game. Game of the year. 10 out of 10. It was okay. Thanks for watching. Sorry about the fucking audio shit in the early videos. In the early part of this video and in the Dark Souls video that I did. Fixed now. Sorry. Thanks for, see you guys next time.